Morrison, we've got to leave it there, but thanks for your time today.
Thanks, David.
And a little earlier I spoke to the Greens Deputy Leader Adam Bandt about the asylum seeker issue. We'll play that interview for you now. Adam Bandt, thanks for your time. The Salvation Army say that facilities on Nauru have to be upgraded before women and children can be sent there. What are your specific concerns in Nauru?
Well, the Salvation Army is there on the ground, and if they don't think that the temporary structures and others that are erected there are good enough for people, then I think that's advice that we, but more particularly the Minister, should be listening to. And it's now up to the Minister to come out and say whether he will accept the Salvation Army's advice. They're the people that he put in there on the ground. And say whether he thinks it's appropriate that women and children should be sent there. And we don't think it is. We'll take the Salvation Army's advice on this point. Of course, we've got broader issues with the whole why we're sending these people offshore in the first place anyway.
But if the Salvation Army says that they're satisfied that women and children can be sent there, will you be satisfied?
Well, I think that would go a long way towards it. But I think at the moment the Minister really needs to satisfy himself. I mean, he's the one who's in charge. He's the one who's made this decision. He has to be satisfied positively that it's okay to send women and children there, and at the moment he doesn't seem to have answered that, and I think that's disturbing for what is a big shift in Australian immigration policy.
So what specifically do you want to see? What specifically on Nauru would make you more comfortable?
Well, look, the big concern is people's welfare, whether they're being properly supported, especially in terms of legal rights, but also just basically whether it's a livable place for women and children in particular who've got special needs. Now, we'll take advice from the people who are there on the ground, and if they think it's not satisfactory, then that's something that should concern the Minister. And
so the fact that all men, or all people being sent there at the moment are men and all from Sri Lanka, does that make you any more comfortable at all?
Well, we're not comfortable with this solution, but what we're trying to do is hold the government to account on the promises that they've made to the people about basic levels of humanity that they'll be there. And so I think when the Salvation Army, the Minister's own hand-picked group, says it's not okay, then we should take note and the Minister should take note.
Okay, on gay marriage, the government looks pretty close to bringing on a vote on gay marriage. Do you really think that trying to hold back until later on would improve your chances of success of having the law changed in this area?
Yeah, I do, and I think this is a cynical move by the Labor factions to try and clear the deck, and then they'll be able to blame Tony Abbott to say that that's the reason the vote didn't go up. But what we need is enough time to continue the campaign to get Tony Abbott to give his MPs a conscience vote. And we've heard one Liberal senator speak out today and say she's not ruling out crossing the floor on this. She believes in it strongly. And I think there are many, many more people on the coalition benches who feel the same, who believe in individual freedom of choice. And I think Labor is attempting to cynically get this out of the way so that they can move on, in their words. But the issue's not going to go away. And we'll continue with our bills in Parliament, not going to bring them to a vote precipitously. The main aim is to get reform, not to clear this issue off the political agenda.
Why would Tony Abbott allow a conscience vote on this issue? He's made it very clear that he wouldn't.
Because there are lots of people in the Liberal Party who believe in that basic principle of an individual's freedom of choice, and that the government should not get involved in choices that an individual makes unless it harms someone else. And not only that, but this is also the party that prides themselves on giving their members of Parliament greater flexibility and greater individual freedom to vote the way they want than the Labor Party. And I think there are well, I know that there are a number of coalition MPs who do not feel comfortable about being forced to vote against their conscience and forced to vote a particular way when the Labor Party is having a free vote. And I don't think that position is sustainable for Tony Abbott in the long term.
Just on the polls, before I let you go, what do you read from the two polls out yesterday? Some have suggested that the Greens have reached their high water mark and the pendulum is swinging back to where it was before without so much success for the Greens as we saw at the last federal election.
Well, the Greens went up to 12% in one of the polls, and I'm still waiting for the headlines about Greens peak, because that vote is in fact higher than what we got at the last federal election. So if that holds up, be very happy with that on election day.
It's not as high as it has been in the last year or so.
Yeah, well, these things move up and down, but I mean, I think the reports of the Greens' death have been greatly exaggerated.
And what about then the local council elections in New South Wales? What do you put down the fact that the electorate there seemed to give the Greens a pretty big whack? I know it's not your state, but what was that? Was that a bad election strategy? Was that a lack of leadership from the Greens, or something else?
Well, let's look at what happened in the Greater Sydney area. The Liberal vote went up by about 7-8%. Labor vote crashed by about 4 and a bit percent, and the Green vote dipped slightly by about 1.8%. Now, Labor's done an extraordinary job to spin their amazing failure. This was their great opportunity to stand up and deliver a message to, a supposedly awful Conservative government there, and yet they crashed. And the Greens held on to the mayor in Byron Bay, and Labor lost the mayor of Liverpool to Liberals for the first time ever. Now, we had a dip in our vote, and you never want that, and people in New South Wales are going to sit down and have a look and try and work out why that was, but it's nothing compared to the drubbing that Labor suffered.
Adam Bant, thank you.
Thanks.
After the break, we will hear from Paul Kelly at The Australian, also Jacqueline Maley and Malcolm Farr on our political panel. Don't go away.